I want you to think for a second about how you shop for your pet. Just, picture the routine. Because I have a stat here that is, well, it's honestly staggering. 67%.
Yeah, it really is a massive number.
Right. That is the exact number of Gen Z pet owners who have completely abandoned the pet store aisle. Like, totally done with it. No more hauling 40-pound bags of kibble into the trunk. No wandering past those endless rows of brightly colored plastic sacks at the grocery store. Over two-thirds of an entire generation are just bypassing that chore entirely and putting their dogs on a subscription.
It's a number that, it fundamentally redefines the baseline of what it means to be a pet owner today. We are essentially looking at the death of the traditional transactional pet food model.
The whole run out of food, go to the store thing.
Exactly. For decades, the system was simple, right? You ran out of food, you went to the store, and you bought whatever was most convenient or, whatever was most cost effective. Now we're seeing this massive shift away from that purely transactional relationship into a really complex, values-based ecosystem.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Welcome in, everybody. Today we are unpacking the very specific, almost, rigid requirements that Gen Z has for pet brands. And we've got a really fascinating new brand in our sources today called Dog and Whistle.
Yeah, they're a perfect example of this shift.
They really are. So we're going to use them as our primary case study to get under the hood of this trend. We'll explore how this demographic is completely upending the industry by demanding 3 absolute non-negotiables. We're talking sustainability, founder authenticity, and community-driven subscription models.
It's a tall order for any brand.
It's huge. But honestly, as I was reading through the research for this, I just really wanted to understand why buying dog food has turned into an ideological commitment. Like, why is this generation treating their pet's pantry like a reflection of their own moral compass?
Well, because for this demographic, the pet is an extension of the self. They view their dogs not as property or even just companions, but largely as family members, as children, really.
Right, the whole fur baby concept, but taken to its logical economic conclusion.
Exactly. And when you pair that with the overarching Gen Z philosophy that, every dollar spent is a vote for the kind of world they want to live in, you get this deeply ideological approach to purchasing. The subscription model just happens to be the perfect ongoing vehicle for that kind of economic vote.
Okay, let's pause on that word subscription for a second. Because when I hear that, my brain immediately goes to, Amazon Subscribe and Save.
Oh, sure, the automatic paper towels.
Right. I get dishwasher pods and paper towel delivered every month specifically because I do not want to think about them. It's the ultimate set it and forget it mechanism. But a 67% adoption rate implies something way beyond just dodging a Sunday errand. Are they really just chasing convenience here?
If it were just about convenience, any giant conglomerate with a massive shipping department would win the market instantly. They already have the logistics down.
True. They could just outship everyone.
Right. But for Gen Z, convenience is merely a byproduct. The primary driver is what the industry calls values alignment. When they subscribe to a premium pet food brand, they don't view it as just, setting up a recurring credit card charge for dog treats.
So what is it to them?
They view it as joining a community. They're committing to a shared mission. It's a very active psychological engagement rather than a passive one.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that feels way less like buying bulk paper towels and way more like joining a community-supported agriculture box. Like a CSA.
That is actually a really great analogy.
Right, because if you're listening to this and you've ever joined a CSA, you know that exact feeling. When you get that weekly box of weird seasonal squash on your porch, you aren't just buying vegetables. You're financially supporting a local farmer. You're buying into the whole concept of seasonal eating. You get recipes. You're joining a club of people who care about soil health.
And the smartest brands in the pet space right now are building digital ecosystems that replicate that exact feeling of community involvement. Dog and Whistle is a prime example of this.
How so? What are they doing differently?
Well, they didn't just formulate a line of dog treats, slap a recurring checkout button on their website, and call it a day. They actually built an entirely separate digital infrastructure around the food called the Mindful Guardian app.
Wait, an app?
Yeah.
Dedicated specifically to your dog's food?
Yes.
Which, on the surface, that might sound a little excessive. What are you actually doing on a dog food app on a random Tuesday afternoon?
You're integrating the physical product with your pet's biological data. The Mindful Guardian app isn't just a portal to order more kibble. It features comprehensive dietary logs, trackable wellness records, and even an AI chat interface.
An AI chat.
For the dog. Well, for the owner to talk about the dog, let's look at the mechanics of how this actually changes consumer behavior. Say you feed your dog the prescribed meal, but you also open the app to log that maybe their energy seems a little low today, or maybe their coat looks incredibly shiny. The AI processes those anecdotal observations alongside the exact nutritional profile of the food being delivered, and then it provides personalized feedback. So it transforms the buyer from a passive consumer into an active participant in this continuous customized wellness program.
That completely changes the stakes of the purchase. I mean, if
Well,
the app creates this continuous feedback loop, you aren't just going to cancel your subscription on a whim to pick up a random bag at the supermarket.
exactly, because if you do that, you aren't just losing the physical treat.
You're losing the health logs, the AI analysis, the whole support system that's actively helping you figure out your dog's digestion.
The switching costs become incredibly high. And not because you're locked into some predatory, impossible to cancel contract, but because of the emotional and informational investment you've made in the ecosystem.
Right, you've put in the work.
Yeah. Leaving the subscription means abandoning the community and the customized data that basically ensures your pet's longevity. It successfully elevates the whole relationship from a simple retail transaction to a holistic wellness partnership.
That makes total sense. But let's look at the actual values this community is rallying around. You're tracking your dog's health on an app, but what is actually in the bowl? Because looking at the source material, the loudest demand, the absolute glaring non-negotiable for this demographic is sustainability.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to completely discard the old definition of sustainability here.
What do you mean by the old definition?
Well, think about 10 or 15 years ago. A brand could print a little green leaf on a brown paper bag, slap the word eco-friendly on the label, and consumers felt pretty good about the purchase. It was a clever marketing add-on.
Yeah, the classic greenwashing playbook.
Exactly. But for Gen Z, that kind of surface-level greenwashing gets you laughed out of the room. Sustainability isn't a feature anymore. It's an absolute mandatory requirement. It's table stakes.
So if you don't have it, you can't even sit at the table.
Right. If your entire operational model isn't built around it, you aren't even allowed to compete for their dollars.
So how does a brand actually prove that? Because sustainability is a massive buzzword. Literally every company claims they're doing it. How does Dog and Whistle physically bake this into their products in a way that Gen Z actually trusts?
Through a highly specialized supply chain focused entirely on upcycled ingredients. Their whole product lineup items like the chickpea nib, the wet meal topper, and the padobo, they're formulated specifically to reduce waste
By doing what?
by capturing premium ingredients that the human food supply chain discards.
Okay, hold on. I've got to play devil's advocate here for a second. Because if I'm a Gen Z pet parent and you tell me you're feeding my dog upcycled ingredients, my skepticism is going to spike immediately.
Why is that?
Isn't it just a very clever modern rebrand for feeding dogs our leftovers? Like, historically, mass-market dog food was literally made from the absolute lowest grade sweepings off the slaughterhouse floor. The stuff deemed totally unfit for human consumption. How is intentional waste any different from that old-school cost-cutting kibble made from cheap filler? Sell me on this.
It's a fair question. The distinction lies entirely in the mechanics of the supply chain and the quality of the input. The old mass market model you're describing used scraps purely for cost cutting. Large corporations needed the cheapest possible protein source to maximize their profit margins, and they did it with zero transparency.
Right, mystery meats.
Exactly. But modern upcycling in the premium space is about capturing highly nutritious, structurally sound food that is simply commercially unviable for a grocery store shelf.
Give me a concrete example of how that works in practice. Like, what are we physically upcycling here?
Okay, let's look at the alternative milk industry.
Yeah.
When a factory produces oat milk, they press tons of raw oats to extract the liquid, right?
Yeah.
What is left behind is oat pulp. It is perfectly clean, incredibly nutritious, and absolutely loaded with high-quality fiber. But human consumers do not want to buy wet oat pulp in a plastic tub at the supermarket.
No, definitely not. That sounds terrible.
Right. So historically, thousands of tons of this premium fiber would just be dumped into a landfill. It's totally wasted. Instead, Dog and Whistle intercepts that supply chain. They capture that premium oat pulp, formulate it into a recipe, and bake it into a high-end pet treat.
Ah, okay. So we aren't talking about mystery meat swept off a factory floor. We're talking about the byproducts of high-end human food manufacturing. Or maybe, like, cosmetically ugly vegetables that don't look pretty enough for a produce display, but have perfect nutritional profiles.
Exactly. And operationally, capturing those ingredients is actually quite difficult. It requires building a specialized, agile supply chain to safely intercept and process that oat pulp or those ugly carrots before they degrade.
Which takes effort.
A lot of effort. And for Gen Z, seeing a company go through that logistical headache proves authenticity. It shows that sustainability is actually woven into the physical DNA of how the company operates, rather than just being a marketing sticker slapped on the packaging to save a few pennies.
But logically, if I'm going to feed my dog oat milk pulp and cosmetically imperfect vegetables, I need a massive amount of trust in the company processing it. If it's a giant, faceless mega corporation telling me they're using intentional waste, I'm just going to assume it's cheap filler. I need to know exactly who was in the kitchen making this stuff.
Which brings us right to the next massive shift.
Right.
The demand for absolute founder authenticity. You really cannot separate the upcycling model from the founders running it.
Oh, so.
Well, if we look at the broader industry context, private label pet brands, and these are the massive store brands owned by huge anonymous corporate conglomerates, they currently hold a 21.3% market share. They are a dominating force on the shelves right now.
21% is a massive slice of the pie. They have the volume.
They absolutely have the volume. But our sources make a crucial distinction here. They do not have the loyalty or the cultural momentum. The real growth, the fierce energy, and the passionate consumer base are entirely concentrated in the direct-to-consumer, premium, founder-led space.
Because they want real people.
Exactly. This demographic operates on a very simple guiding principle. Founders, not corporations. They want radical transparency about who is making the decisions.
It's essentially the kitchen-to-bowl movement. I mean, we saw this play out with human food about a decade ago with the whole farm-to-table movement. Suddenly, everyone needed to know the exact name of the farmer who grew their tomatoes and the specific region their coffee beans were roasted in.
Yeah, the hyperlocal transparency.
Right. And now we're seeing that exact same standard applied to dog food. People want to know the human being behind the kibble. They want a face, a culinary philosophy, and a transparent story.
And Dog and Whistle is a perfect study in how a brand proves that authenticity through expensive operational choices rather than just good advertising copy. First off, they manufacture all their products in-house in Las Vegas.
Which, I have to admit, stopped me in my tracks when I read the notes for this. Las Vegas. Usually premium pet food brands boast about, pristine wind-powered facilities in the Pacific Northwest or somewhere surrounded by mountains. Las Vegas doesn't exactly scream natural canine wellness. Why there?
The geographic location is less about the aesthetic and entirely about control and infrastructure.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. Las Vegas has a massive hospitality industry, which means they have an enormous, high-functioning food infrastructure perfect for sourcing upcycled ingredients efficiently.
Oh, that makes total sense, all the buffets and restaurants.
Exactly. But the more important factor is the in-house part. By keeping their manufacturing entirely internal, they maintain absolute total quality control. They aren't outsourcing their production to a massive anonymous co-packer in the Midwest where their treats are run on the exact same assembly line as 20 other budget brands.
So if there's a cross-contamination issue or a bad batch of ingredients on a shared assembly line, it usually cascades across a dozen different companies. But by owning their own factory floor, Dog and Whistle isolates themselves from that corporate supply chain risk.
Precisely. Furthermore, the founders are actively applying their human culinary backgrounds to pet nutrition. They are holding dog food to the exact same safety and quality standards as human food. They oversee the factory floor themselves.
And that completely explains a stat from the sources that really stood out to me. 0 recalls since their founding.
It's impressive.
That is a massive trust signal to a consumer. I mean, if you're running your own facility and treating dog food with culinary rigor, 0 recalls is the ultimate proof of concept that your in-house strategy actually works.
And then you add to that operational control their commitment to donate 5% of all their sales to the Nevada SPCA. When you stack all these things together, the in-house manufacturing, the human culinary standards, the local charitable donations, none of these are simple marketing tactics. They are difficult, expensive operational choices.
It all routes right back to that concept of voting with your dollars. Gen Z sees the logistical difficulty of doing this right, and they actively use their purchasing power to decide which companies deserve to survive. A brand like Dog and Whistle acts as the total antithesis of that 21.3% mass market private label surge. They are offering a transparent, mission-driven alternative to the faceless corporate machine.
Exactly. How you put the pieces together reveals the new playbook. You cannot just formulate kibble, put it in a bag, and expect this generation to buy it. You have to build an ecosystem.
Let's summarize that ecosystem for a second, because it really is a dramatic shift from how we've handled pet care for the last century.
Yeah.
It starts with a non-negotiable commitment to real operational sustainability. Meaning you have to build a complex supply chain to upcycle premium ingredients like oat pulp instead of relying on cheap filler.
Right.
Then you have to back that up with radical transparency, keeping your manufacturing in-house to guarantee quality and prove you aren't just another corporate behemoth looking for a margin bump. And finally, you tie all of that together with a community-driven subscription model, using technology like the Mindful Guardian app to turn a mundane purchase into an active, wellness-focused lifestyle choice. It's a complete reimagining of what it means to be a pet parent.
They've elevated pet care from a household chore to a direct reflection of their deepest personal values. And as this specific demographic ages and commands even more of the global purchasing power, these intense demands for sustainability, authenticity, and community, they're only going to become more entrenched. The old way of doing business is simply going to age out of the market.
Which brings me to a final thought from our source material today that I just cannot stop thinking about. If you're listening to this right now and you're looking at your dog, you know how much time, energy, and money you're willing to invest in their health. We've talked extensively about how Gen Z is treating dog food with the same ethical and culinary rigor as their own diets. But the notes tease some upcoming trends that are honestly mind-blowing.
The future of this space is wild.
It really is. We're talking about the potential integration of GLP-1s. And for those who don't know, those are the massively popular weight loss and metabolic drugs currently sweeping the human market. We're talking about seeing those alongside a heavy pivot into insect proteins and highly advanced AI-driven personalization, all making their way directly into daily pet nutrition.
It's the inevitable next frontier. I mean, if the pet is a true extension of the self and their diet already mirrors the human's ethical standards, then the pet's healthcare and nutrition will inevitably mirror the absolute cutting edge of human science and pharmacology.
So I want you to mull this over. If Gen Z pet parents are already treating their dogs' diets with this level of technological and ethical intensity today, what happens to the market when dog nutrition fully collides with the most disruptive human medical trends? Are we going to see dogs prescribed GLP-1s for weight management directly through an app interface? Are we going to see a mass consumer pivot away from beef and chicken toward insect-based kibble for maximum climate efficiency?
It's highly likely.
The pet store aisle of the future, if this generation even steps foot in a physical store, might look entirely alien to us today. It might look less like a brightly lit grocery store and way more like a high-tech pharmacy mixed with a Silicon Valley startup incubator. Think about that the next time you're hauling that 40-pound bag of kibble out of your trunk. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking deeper, and we'll catch you next time as we continue to explore the fascinating ways our world is shifting.